Yo guys, welcome back. It is Ripe again, back with episode 49 of our Reddit series, and I hope you're ready to get annoyed by some entitled people. If you could like the video, that would be absolutely amazing, and if you're new around here, feel free to subscribe. But now, let's dive right in. The world revolves around me because I'm pregnant. This unfolded today on a Greyhound bus I was taking from Minnesota to Wisconsin. While the entitled parent did not have her other children around her, I believe this fits here due to the central focus of her entitlement, her supposed pregnancy. We stopped in a small town about halfway through the trip for a food/restroom break. I was walking up to the McDonald's when a middle-aged woman looked to be at or over 50, unless she was a smoker perhaps, not heavy-set but not thin, but very not pregnant, or at least very early in a pregnancy, breaks into a run ahead of an elderly man who's walking up a bit more slowly. She glances back at him and calls,
"Have to hurry if you want to be the first in line,"
to him. I had assumed they were together and she was going to hold the door for him or was just poking at him. But later I learned that they were not, and she was just rude and oddly competitive. She reached the door after sprinting to it while kind of singing to herself,
"Gotta be first in line,"
pushed inside and assumingly ran to the counter. I held the door open for the older man. He had silver hair and looked to be about 70, as well as 4 or 5 other passengers, and made my way to the bathroom first. That rude woman was in line to order food at that time, but frustrated that other people were ahead of her. She sent nasty glances at those who dared to be ahead of her and little smirks at those who stepped into line behind her. When I came back from the bathroom, the lines were very long as I had expected, and there were very few empty seats on the Greyhound. So I stepped to the end of one of them to wait to order. I had just gotten in line and the woman who had run ahead, unsurprisingly, made a fuss nearby. There was no ice in one of the fountain drink machines, though the other did have ice and was working. The poor workers behind the counter had their hands full from a good 40 patrons suddenly appearing. She, obviously under the impression that the world revolved around her, waved her hands at one of the workers behind the counter while standing behind both lines and the fountain drink machines, mind you, as if they could A, hear her, and B, take time to fill one of the 2 ice machines. I think her exact words were to them,
"Well, explain this. There's no ice in the machine. Hello? There's no effing ice,"
cursing under her breath.
"Damn lazy workers."
I had decided at that point that I really did not like her because damn, everyone was clearly working very hard, but figured that maybe she was having a bad day or something. I was then about halfway through the line when she sat down at a table nearby, throwing her empty cups onto it and genuinely shouting in the general vicinity of the counter that it was ridiculous that she had not gotten her food yet.
"Are you kidding me? Where's my food? I'm pregnant. I was the first one to order and I still haven't gotten my food yet. You are just gonna let a pregnant lady starve?"
The clerks glanced at her but shrugged because they literally could not do anything to make her food be magically cooked faster. I now get up to the counter and I'm about to pay for my food when there is a scuffle directly to my left. You guessed it, pregnant narcissist. Her number was called and she literally ran into a guy who had been patiently waiting at the counter to receive his food and absolutely exploded at him under the delusion that he had run into her, shouting even louder than before. I don't remember her exact words, but they were close to,
"Effing watch where you're going, you effing a-hole. I'm pregnant. You ran right into me. You're trying to knock me over? Get the F out of here. I'm effing pregnant. How effing dare you? You need to learn some effing respect. I'm pregnant."
He kind of just stared at her as she left, flabbergasted. She then came back inside to say, again,
"I'm effing pregnant. You better beg that I don't sue your sorry butt, you effing a-hole."
Oh, also, did she mention that she was pregnant? She then stormed outside and I made a comment of, Well, she's pregnant, don't you know? To diffuse the tension a little bit. I gave back change to the sweet little old lady who was taking my order. I had given her a 10 as this was unfolding, and she handed me back my correct change as well as another 10. She apologized and said that she was flustered about what had happened. I felt so bad for her. She was a 65-plus-year-old clerk at this sad little McDonald's with chaotic women who think the world is centered around them. Thankfully, I did not see more of her until I was back on the bus and she says to a random passenger,
"The spirits are a-comin'. That's Spanish for..."
I could not quite understand what she said, but from the sounds of it, she was pissed about something again. Maybe the same thing, maybe something else. Who knows? After another hour on the road, I closed my book and was chatting with my seatmate. Apparently, she had come into the bus in a huff, saying that the staff were rude. Also, that they had refused her ice, and that a man had shoved into her and gotten into her face while shouting at her. My question: who needs to get the entirety of a bus of random strangers to sympathize with your fairy tale story in which you, the butthole, is somehow really the victim? Guys, I don't know why, but that story kind of gives me the vibe that this woman might be pregnant, but I could be wrong, of course. Entitled woman sticks her whole hand in a jar at the salad bar and acts like I'm the bad guy for saying something. This happened this morning. So I am at a local premium supermarket, the kind notorious for taking your whole paycheck. It's on my way to work and I like to fix myself a salad to take in for lunch. There is a woman in front of me, but we are moving at about the same speed. So I'm gathering my lettuce, carrot shavings, and oh, they have olives today, and I make it up to the dressings. Next to the dressings, there's a bunch of jars of things to shake on your salad. Peanuts, walnuts, almond shavings, wasabi peas, you know. This woman picks up the jar of dried cranberries, unscrews the lid, and puts her whole hand in the jar, grabs some cranberries, and puts them on her salad. And then she puts her whole hand in the jar again, grabs some more, and puts them on her salad. She screws the lid back on and puts it back in the bar. My eyes go wide. I have a background in microbiology and I have specialized training in epidemiology and public health. Even if you don't have specialized training, it is not hard to understand why this is wrong. I don't like confrontation, but holy crap. Did you just stick your hand in there? The entitled woman says,
"Oh yeah, they stick. You have to do that to get them."
Oh, I don't even know how to respond to that. I grab the jar and take it over to the nearby deli. "Hey, that woman just put her hand in this jar." Deli guy, "In the jar?" "Yeah, she unscrewed the lid and put her hand in." "Ooh." He took the jar, hopefully to have it cleaned. I finish fixing my salad, thinking that it's done, and go to checkout. On the way there, I run into Hans woman again. She has been joined by her ginormous buff boyfriend.
Sir, you're touching your card. There might be germs on it."
Holy F, my mouth falls open. I cannot comprehend that this woman does not comprehend that what she did was unsanitary and wrong. Unfortunately, my brain locks up and I've been thinking incessantly about all the effing cool comebacks I should have came back with. What I did was manage to stammer out, "Food, you were touching food. People don't want to eat what you touched. You should be ashamed of yourself." Boyfriend,
"F you, a-hole."
As I was checking out, shaking from the adrenaline, I was so mad. I could see them talking to a manager and pointing at me like I was the one in the wrong here. F them. My kid knew at age 3 not to touch food in the salad bar. They are bad people. That is just absolutely disgusting. Let's continue to the next one. Entitled parent,
"Let me grab your dog and spread rumors about it."
Okay, for some backstory. I recently got a new puppy and he's a mix of Labrador and American Staffy. Staffies are supposedly aggressive dogs, but this is a lie, the same with pit bulls. Staffies were actually nanny dogs and left to guard the kids when the parents went out. My puppy is almost 5 months old and loves to wrestle with other dogs, and I often take him to a nearby dog park so he can socialize and learn the right skills. Anyway, here's the story. So one day I decided to take my little puppy to the dog park. Once we arrived, he greeted the other dogs with a sniff to the butt before finding a scruffy black dog a bit smaller than him to play with. He starts jumping on this dog and rolling over and just having a good time. And then I realize that EP, the owner of the dog he's playing with, walks up to them. Since I am on the other side of the field, I did not see exactly what happened, but she grabbed my dog and ripped him away from her dog. I see this and start to charge towards her. "What do you think you're doing?" I ask EP angrily.
It's cold and I want to go home. Either my dog can play one-on-one with another dog or can run around the field.
EP said as she tightened her grip around my dog's collar. I see this and grab my dog from her, not wanting him to get hurt or start growling at the EP. I scoop him up in my arms and start to carry him away. My friend, who was with me, stood with the woman a moment longer and heard her say this to the man next to her.
I effing hate bulldogs, and that's why I didn't let my dog off the lead until she was 2 years old.
My friend tells me what she heard, and I turned around and went back to the woman, putting my puppy down in the process. "What did you say about my dog?" I said as I looked directly into this woman's black eyes, whilst mine had flames in them.
My dog?
She asked. Now she was trying to change the subject. "No, my dog," I said, not taking my eyes off her.
Oh right, I said he was a tiny but bulldog.
She said, making a small hand gesture. "No, he's an American Staffy Cross Lab."
Oh well, the Staffy would explain it then.
She smirked. By this point, it was starting to rain and I had to take my friend home, so with that, we left. A few days later, I decide to go back to the park and guess who's there? EP and her stupid dog. At first, my pup plays with other doggos, but soon gets bored and goes and plays with EP's dog, and I realized this and started to walk towards them. But again, I'm on the other side of the field and it takes time to end the conversation I'm in with another dog owner. I look over to check on my puppy and guess what's happening. EP is holding him by his collar whilst letting her dog bite him. My dog is whimpering and I run over. Again, I confront her. "What are you doing? Let go of my dog." Nothing she did and said nothing, so I repeat myself. "Let go of my dog now." I raised my voice, still nothing at this point, and I'm fed up with her BS and grab her arm. "Let go of my dog now." I was getting really mad now.
Oh, but this is how I play, and besides, my dog is pinning your dog down by her neck.
EP said, smirking. I agree that you can step in when your dogs are getting aggressive or you don't want them playing like that, but you cannot just let your dog hurt another one whilst holding it. No, that is how dogs play if your dog was in serious danger. She would have either whined or bitten my dog to let him know.
Fine then,
she said as she let my dog go. I quickly scooped him up and left. Okay, so this is the final thing she has done so far. I rock up at the park with my pupper and let him off the lead. EP is standing in the middle of the field and watching her dog play. She has this woman next to her that I have never seen before. I took no notice and watched my dog play. Then I saw that EP and her friend were whispering and glancing at me and my dog. I waited for them to stop looking at me and snuck up behind them to hear what they were saying.
Yeah, it's a pure Staffy. It's so dangerous. It should be eating a muzzle. It almost killed my poor little dog.
EP whispered to her friend.
Oh my god, really? That is so bad. I heard that so many dogs get killed by Staffies. It's more than pit bulls.
EP's friend says before wiping her head around to see me glaring at them, arms crossed. I walk over to them and before I can talk, EP's friend goes,
"Is the dog yours?"
Points to my dog. "Yes," I answer.
"Well, I think you should keep it on a lead."
"What? Why?"
"Well, it's a purebred Staffy and it's being aggressive towards other dogs."
I turn around to see my dog being pet by the other owners and chasing a ball. "I'm sorry, but he's an American Staffy mixed with a Labrador," American Staffies are a lot less aggressive and he's not hurting anybody or their dogs. By now, EP is getting frustrated and her friend is bright red. For the rest of the day, I watched as my puppy played with EP's dog and stayed very close to EP and did not let her touch my precious puppy. I will update and tell you more if anything else happens. So guys, and today I have another little treat for you, which is a church drama story from our own subreddit. And once again, I encourage everyone to post your own stories there, but please let me know what kind of story it is, aka pro revenge, entitled parents, church drama, and so on. I would be very happy to read your stories in a video. So this story was posted by /Stacy Rose is me and is called Woman Who Ran at Home Church Forced Me to Give Up My Garfield Blanket. So this church my family went to was not really a church at all. What we did was every Sunday and Wednesday we would go to this woman's house that was in a neighboring town with a bunch of other people. I always thought it was odd, but it's what my family went to because they heard this woman was a great minister. Well, she wasn't. This was a Sunday and we had just arrived, and like every other Sunday and Wednesday, when we would go to her house, she was laying on the couch waiting for us all to start her sermon. We were made to sit on the floor in front of the couch, and I had always thought this was odd. It was a cold winter day and I had brought my Garfield blanket with me and my favorite Garfield stuffed animal. That's what I collected at the time. If there are those of you who don't know what Garfield is, he is an orange comic cat written by a man named Jim Davis. Anyways, we had just arrived and we were seated on the floor in front of the couch while this woman laid on her couch waiting for the others to arrive. So the rest of the people arrived and this horrible woman was getting ready to start her sermon. Before she started her sermon, she demanded that I stand up in front of everyone else, and I was confused to why. She then told everyone to look at me and I started to get anxious. She looked at my parents and asked them how they felt about raising Satan's spawn. They just looked at me and then at her, but did not say a word, which really hurt my feelings. She ordered me to give her my Garfield blanket, to which I did out of fear. She wrapped my blanket around herself and then ordered me to sit back down. I sat down, crying. By the way, I forgot to mention, the OP in the story was about 11 or 12 years old. She then said,
"This girl worships the devil. She's Satan's child. Do you know why I know this?"
Everyone around me answered no, kind of in unison. She then proceeded to say,
"It's because she has this blanket, which I now have. This is the sign of the devil. Look at that toy she clutches to her chest. That too is the sign of the devil, and she must be forced to see the error of her ways."
I was still crying and looking at my parents for help, but when they did nothing to help me, I looked at her and said, "But miss, if I collect Garfield, how is that the devil?" She told me to shut up, but I kept going and looked at my grandmother and said, "Grandma collects Snoopy, why isn't that the devil's sign?" Everyone was hushed, even my family. This woman then ordered me to stand up again and stand in front of her. So I did, but this time a little tiny bit braver than I was before. I waited for my punishment. Then she slapped me hard across the face, so hard that I was knocked off my feet and landed next to my little sister and my little brother. They were crying now and held on to me, begging her not to hurt me again. Then my mom did something I never thought she would do. She got up and said, "Children, we are leaving." My father yelled at her to sit down and she glared at him and said, "No one touches my children. You allowed this fat woman to slap our daughter and steal the blanket we both gave her for Christmas? Do you think that's what God wants?" The woman that slapped me told my mother that if she walks out of the door, she will have us taken away from my mother, and my mom said, "I would like to see you try. My daughter has a big bruise on her face because of you. I am leaving with my children and I am going to the police to press charges against you, with or without my husband." My grandmother got up and told the woman,
"My daughter-in-law is right. God wouldn't want this. And my granddaughter is right too. You only wanted her blanket because we were cold and decided it would be best to humiliate her in front of our family and friends. She will never come back here again.
She then looked at my father and said,
John, it is time for you to stand up for your family instead of this godless woman.
My mother, my siblings, my grandmother and I walked out of that house, but my father did not follow. When we got to my grandmother's house, my mother called the police on that woman, and we found out a week later that she was on the run from the law for running a cult. It seems she was trying to start a cult again with my family and the friends of my family. I did not ever get my Garfield blanket back because that woman set it on fire after we left, but my grandmother took me shopping later for a new one and some toys for my siblings and myself. I remember thinking there must be something wrong with me for collecting Garfield, but my grandmother told me there's nothing wrong with collecting things that you enjoy. The last part of the story I will leave out because I think it's a bit too personal for YouTube, but I will pass on this question from Stacy Rose. I was wondering if any of you have had weird experiences at so-called churches like this one. Were you ever forced to give up your collections because they deemed it evil? How did you cope with that? So guys, don't forget, I would love to read your stories if you share them on r/ripestories. There are no post requirements anymore, so anyone who just created a Reddit account can post there. And since this is all the content I have for you today, I just want to give a quick thank you to all my loyal Ripe stars, and you know I still read all your comments and I appreciate every single comment you make, every like you give. I take none of this for granted, and I would have never thought that this channel would blow up like this. So I hope you have a great day and I see you again tomorrow.